In this case, that business should be making at least 250 grand a year in profit, if not more. So what I tell people is, look, which route you go just depends on what your goals are and how quickly you're trying to get open and up and running. Keep in mind, how you start is not necessarily how you finish. And your goal as an owner, eventually you want to get to a place where you're working on the business, not in the business. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. All right, so let's talk about how do you make money owning a franchise? Like, is this something that you have to be full-time in the business, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Is it possible to be able to keep your current job and run and operate a franchise or even multiple franchises? How does it work? How is it structured? And let's talk about everything that you need to know. We're going to talk about the different ways that you can make money owning a franchise. And if you're new here, if we haven't met, my name is Tarek Johnson. I've owned multiple franchise locations across the country. And so, what'll be cool about this conversation today is that a lot of these scenarios I've done, right? So I've been the owner operator in the franchise. I've been semi-absentee and I've been an absentee owner. We'll talk about those terms and what they mean if you're not familiar with those specific terms. But I've done those things. I bought a new franchise. I bought a resale franchise as a turnaround opportunity. And literally every single day, all I do is talk to franchise buyers, franchisees, and founders and CEOs of franchise companies. So I literally eat, sleep, breathe franchising, right? So the first way, let's just jump right in. The first way to make money owning a franchise, the first one is to buy an existing location, to buy a resale franchise. I start out with this one because it's one that is very uncommon that people don't know about. Right now, there's a lot of talks about buying businesses and buying boring businesses, but you can also buy a resale franchise. And they can be fantastic opportunities to for who? Let's talk about that. So for someone like we have a lot of people that reach out to us and want help finding a franchise, and they're like, "Hey, Tarek, look, I make six figures a year. I make a really good income, and maybe they're the only one that they're the breadwinner in their family. They've got kids. They're like, the idea of having to start over financially and lose my salary and my family is depending upon me. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow." And even if that's not your situation and you just like the idea of walking into a business that has existing cash flow, existing staff, it's already up and running, it's been proven, then buying a resale franchise could be a really good fit. And there's kind of two ways to go with that. You can buy a resale franchise that is already profitable, that's doing well financially, and is cash flowing. Typically, what's going to happen there is you're going to pay a multiple of the business's profits. So, as an example, the typical multiple for a resale business is somewhere between a 2 to 4 times multiple. Meaning, if the business is making 100 grand a year in profit, you're going to pay a 2 times multiple, so between 200 grand to 400 grand. And a lot of that depends on how active the current owner is in that business. So the more a business is owner operated, meaning it's dependent on that owner, then the less valuable that business is when it goes to sell. The more the business has a manager or is run absentee or semi-absentee and the business can operate, that increases how valuable the business is. So recently we had someone in our system working with one of the franchise brokers that that we connected them with on our team that we work with and have our clients work with, and they found them a resale business that was for sale for, I think it was $850,000. And this guy in the Zero Profitable Franchise System, our client, he sent me an email. He said, "Hey, this is this is a really expensive business. I don't know about this. This is a lot. This is a lot of money. This is kind of really outside of my comfort zone." And for me, I live and breathe this world. I've bought and sold multiple businesses. So I was actually surprised to get the email because I just assumed that people thought like me, which is the higher the price of the business, typically the better it means the business is. Because when you're buying it for a multiple of its profits, the more expensive it is, the more profitable it is. So in this case, like that business should be making at least 250 grand a year in profit, if not more. And so you're going to pay a higher price for that. If a business is only selling for 100 grand, 150 grand, it means the business is not very profitable or the business is losing money. So the cheaper the business is, really the more it would be a turnaround opportunity, which is the second way to go about buying a resale franchise. So our second franchise that we bought, so we built one from scratch. When I say we, my wife and I, we built a brand new location from scratch in California. And then less than a year later, about 9 months later, we moved to Florida. I ran and operated that business and managed my manager from across the country. I did that for 3 years before we sold that location. And so we bought a resale in Florida when we moved there. Turned out that the location we bought was going to be a turnaround opportunity because it was not really making money. It was like just break even, maybe losing a little bit of money. So we were able to buy that business for a third of the price that it cost us to get the first location open. But the reason why we were able to get it so cheap is because the business was not making money and it was going to need some TLC, it was going to need some love. And I spent a lot of hours. It took me a good bit to turn that business around, but eventually I did. But that was me working in the store a good 40, 60 hours a week for almost a year. And a year later, we increased sales by 35%. So that's a turnaround opportunity. And that's one way that you can make money is by buying a resale location. Number two, my intention with this podcast is to help you build your empire. If you've gotten a single piece of value, one of the best ways you can help me and the podcast is to simply press the like button on YouTube. Lastly, share this podcast. Share it with someone who who is an empire builder. Imagine the impact you can have by helping them learn something that can build their business and empire. People will associate the value they got from this information from you, the person that shared it with them, all because you shared it with them. I appreciate you and your support. Let's get back to the episode. The second way that you can make money owning a franchise is to buy a new franchise. So this is just your standard deal, right? You wind up buying a franchise through a franchise company that you like, and there's generally two different ways to go about it. You buy a service business or you buy a retail based business, right? So service business is maybe a pest control company or a plumbing company or HVAC or there's thousands of different service franchises, but essentially one where you don't have a retail location. And then the second way to go about it is to buy a franchise that has a retail location where you're actually opening up a storefront. That doesn't just mean food. It could be food, fitness, beauty, boutique. There's all sorts of different options out there. There's even giant furniture stores. There's a company called Buddy's Home Furnishings or something like that. That's a franchise, a huge one. You got trampoline parks. I could go on and on. There's a lot of different ones. But when you're buying a new franchise, you're either buying a territory, right? So typically in a service-based model, you get a defined geographic territory of zip codes that become your territory that you're buying. And a lot of times in service-based models, people will buy multiple territories so that they really have the income potential that they're looking for in the business. And for, again, a retail location, there's oftentimes not any territory protections. but maybe sometimes there is. So you can buy new. It's generally going to take longer to get open and running with a retail location because you have to, it's usually going to take about a year. You got to find the location and negotiate the lease, which takes a couple months. You got to get a general contractor, then you got to get it built out. So what I tell people is, look, which route you go just depends on what your goals are and how quickly you're trying to get open and up and running. If you're looking to get up and running quickly, you're going to want to go service based or buy a resale franchise. But if you don't really care how long it takes to get open, then a retail model could work. And in our case, our franchise, when we signed our lease for our first store that we built out in California, we signed our lease. The shopping center was a dirt lot. So what happened was from when we signed our lease to when we opened took 2.5 years. We signed our lease in 2015, early 2015, I think March, April 2015, and our store opened in November 2017. That was unique because it was a brand new shopping center and the shopping center had not even been built yet. So that was a unique situation. But you can buy a new franchise. And then so for the next ways that you can make money owning a franchise, let's talk about the different ownership styles when you operate it. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast episode so far. One of the most consistent things that we hear from people that reach out to us is that buying a franchise feels really confusing. There's so many options out there. It's a scary decision. They don't know how to vet or do the due diligence or really narrow down on the right franchise for them. And then they really feel alone in the process. You might be the only one in your family who's ever pursued buying a franchise or being an entrepreneur. Or maybe you've tried to start a side hustle before, or other businesses like me. Like before franchising, I was not able to crack the code on entrepreneurship. I'd like to invite you to reach out and work with us. We've helped many clients buy franchises, get them profitable, or buy resale businesses that are thriving. Talking about highly profitable resales, great value. We've allowed many of our clients to actually quit their job right away and replace their income immediately. So if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise, doing due diligence, vetting it, or resale, then go ahead and go to tarzjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. All right, enjoy the rest of the episode. Number 3 is owner-operator. So we talked about owner-operator, right? And that is something that you can bolt on to whether you buy a new franchise or you buy a resale franchise. So owner-operator is pretty simple. You are the one operating the business on a day-to-day basis. You're pretty much full-time in the business. You may even still have a manager for the business, but if you're there putting in, 40 hours a week or so in your business, that is considered an owner-operator business. Oftentimes, they do not have a manager, and typically speaking, right, an owner-operated business is going to have higher profitability in general than if you ran semi-absentee. As an example, let's just throw out like hypothetical numbers, right? Let's say the business was producing $100,000 in total profits, but you're the one operating the business. Well, that's great. And then let's say you can hire a manager for $50,000 a year. Well, you hire the manager, pay them $50,000 a year. Now your profits in the business are only $50,000. At that point, this is where it just depends on what your goals are, what you're looking to accomplish, how many locations you plan on opening, how much access to capital you have. Because at that point, maybe you don't need 100 grand, right? Maybe you only need 50. And what you value is buying back your time with that manager so you can spend time with your family, so you can travel and be able to be more semi-absentee in the business, which we'll talk a little bit about that one next. But maybe if you're someone who's like, hey, I need to maximize as much money as I can out of this, I'm looking to replace my income. Well, you're going to put yourself in the best position by being an owner-operator. Keep in mind, how you start is not necessarily how you finish. In our store in California, I started out as an owner-operator, then promoted some people, got a store manager in place. Eventually, I became semi-absentee shortly before we moved to Florida. Now, once we moved to Florida, I was pretty much an absentee owner. I mean, I would have a call once a week with my store manager. I'd get some text here or there, But I had him running payroll. My employees were doing the cash drops. They were taking the money out of the safe, dropping it at the bank. There's protections and ways to look. I'm super OCD and paranoid. So if I can run a heavy cash business from across the country, you can do it too. There's ways to protect yourself and check your boxes here and there. Um, so that's owner operator. The next one is semi absentee, which we just talked about. Semi absentee. Semi absentee is basically when you spend some time in the business, but you probably have a manager. You're not full time in the business, right? And so a few months after opening our store, we still lived in California. Um, at that point, I had promoted the manager. We had an assistant manager. They had been trained up on how to do the main functions and roles of our location, doing inventory. I think I was still doing orders at that point, but there was a lot of stuff that I didn't need to do. I didn't need to be on the line making juice and smoothies, etc. So at that point, maybe I would pop in the store for a few hours a day, or if I saw they were busy and needed help, or I'd just sit in the back and get some work done for a little bit. But I didn't need to be there every day and all day actually working in the business, right? And your goal as an owner, eventually you want to get to a place where you're working on the business, not in the business, right? The next one after semi absentee is you can own the business with a partner. And you see this happen, especially in some of the service based franchises. You see this a lot with maybe father and son duos, right? So you may see a father provide the financing and the funding for the business, put up the capital, and they own the franchise with their son or their kids. And then the son manages the business primarily, right? And so it doesn't just have to be father son. Obviously, it could be father daughter, mother son, any combination of that. It could be any other combination of family member or not. There are people that we have one of the coaches on our team. He's owned multiple franchises, been a multi-unit owner, and he's had partners. And at one point, he was the operating partner for a franchise. So someone else put up the capital. He was the one running them. So depending upon what your situation is, you could be the one that puts up the capital, finances, funds the whole operation. Then you give a partner some skin in the game. You'll figure that out. Maybe it's whether 10% equity, 20% equity, just a profit share. There's all sorts of different ways on how to structure it. But essentially, you have an operating partner for the business. And so that could be a good way to go. And then last but not least, number 6 is absentee or the investor model. So absentee is just when what I was talking about before. I own my franchise. It was across the country. I pretty much had no involvement of the day-to-day operations of the business at a certain point. It just ran. They managed the labor. Again, they did the cash drops and put the cash in the bank. We had a lot of money come from credit cards too that just got auto deposited. My store manager was actually running payroll. They were doing the orders. They were doing inventory. So I was just looking at the KPIs and the numbers. I really wasn't involved in any aspect of the day-to-day of the business. Now, in order to be absentee, you've got to have good systems in place, accountability, structure, reporting, to be able to see if something's going wrong and see if someone's stealing from you, if your numbers are on track, etc. But that's more of the absentee model. What helped me be what I thought was a good absentee owner was the fact that I had started out as an owner operator. I think it can be very difficult if you go straight into absentee and then you don't really understand the business or how it should be operated. So I think the you put yourself in the best position by gradually getting to absentee, by starting out as an owner operator, being semi-absentee, and then going absentee, or starting out semi-absentee and then eventually getting to absentee. And the combination with absentee is the investor model, which is you're just purely putting up the capital. You're not involved in any of the day-to-day. maybe this kind of ties in with the partner, where maybe you have a partner who is the one that's absentee or operating, but you're just purely putting up the capital and getting returns back out of it, but really have no say or involvement in the business. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're listening on watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what other videos that you want to see, what other topics that you want to talk about, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.